Expect to hear from Sally Yates today. She had a short tenure as acting attorney general. She was removed after some controversy surrounding the Trump immigration ban. What's she going to be asked about today, do you think, Kevin?
Well, I think that according to my sources on Capitol Hill, David, this is going to largely be a partisan hearing. And of course, President Trump's tweet regarding this upcoming hearing, clearly he is trying to set the stage, so to speak, and influence which questions Republicans will be asking Mrs. Yates. Now, that said, you have to remember that she now finds herself caught up in what has become a heated argument, not only amongst Republicans and Democrats, but also reverberating here all throughout Washington. It also comes, David, mind you, the same day that President Trump has unveiled his pick of judges, pulling the judicial system much more further to the right than had previously been anticipated.
Remind us here of the role that Sally Yates played, especially with regard to Michael Flynn, the now ousted head of the National Security Council. From all I gather, she advised the White House that he was, in fact, somebody who was under investigation.
Correct, particularly regarding Michael Flynn and his ties to Russia. Now, Republicans are hitting back on those claims and saying, hey, wait a minute, who exactly did she leak to and why did she leak to them? Now, Mrs. Yates refutes those allegations and says that she was not someone who had leaked anything and simply was advising. But the bottom line is this: when you take a broader step back about the questions that are still circulating, David, regarding Russia, it has increasingly become a much more bipartisan concern. It was just the other week, mind you, when House Speaker Paul Ryan traveled overseas and gave that keynote speech in the United Kingdom about NATO. And in that same speech, he criticized Vladimir Putin as well as Russia for their meddling in the investigation. Now, Republicans have offered somewhat more of a defense for the White House. However, you still have a situation where Senator John McCain earlier today speaking out against Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. So the questions about Russia continue, not just from Democrats, but also from Republicans. And this hearing that is scheduled to begin in just under 40 minutes is the latest illustration of that, but is just an illustration, part of a much larger plot line.
Kevin, get us up to speed on a story that's been breaking today. NBC News first reporting that President Obama himself advised President Trump not to take on Michael Flynn as an advisor. Bloomberg News has since confirmed that report. What did the president say? What more do we know about that?
He advised President Trump about the ongoing investigation regarding Michael Flynn into Russia. I can tell you that General Flynn was someone who accompanied then-candidate Donald Trump frequently on the campaign trail and was one of his most trusted foreign policy advisors. You also have, according to my sources on Capitol Hill, a situation where several investigations are still very much ongoing, and several of these folks could be called to testify before Congress, including General Flynn, including Paul Manafort, including Roger Stone. And so again, I think that this is not going away. And quite frankly, until they do testify before Congress in a public situation, you are still very much going to hear them. It's also no coincidence that FBI Director James Comey spoke publicly across town here in Washington earlier today.
I read from that tweet just a moment ago, obviously the president trying to intercede here. Give us the backstory here. The White House didn't want her to testify, going so far as to write a letter to the Senate Judiciary Committee outlining that she was providing counsel to the White House. She was an administration official for some time. How big a blow is this to the White House, just having Sally Yates on Capitol Hill today?
They don't want this story in the news. This gets them off message. But that said, I think any time that any administration, Republican or Democrats, try to not have people testify, it leads to questions as to why. And again, I think that we have to get away from this notion that this is a partisan issue, because again, I think that there have been several top Republicans, from Senator McCain, from Speaker Paul Ryan, who have drawn serious questions about Russia's meddling into the election. Very
quickly here, the president meeting with his Secretary of State today and new national security advisor. I gather he's probably preparing for his first trip overseas.
Yes. I can tell you that next Thursday is when President Trump will make his first international trip. He will be heading to Israel. He will be heading to the Vatican. He'll be heading to Saudi Arabia, the G7. Busy next couple of weeks. And we should also note that Democrats are also beginning to lay the plot lines for just how they will serve as an opposition party. The shadow of France casting a large shadow today here in Washington.
Kevin, great to speak.